Thank you, and good morning, everybody, and good morning most of all, Minister. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And now we want to dig a bit deeper, take this opportunity to get to know each other better, but more importantly, to gather the insights from this very prestigious panel that we have here, an esteemed panel. So guys, we have a QR code going on as well. If you want to ask questions, we do have a few questions here already. Perhaps we'd like to start off, Minister, with the very first question for you. Being the Minister, of course, for Digital Development and Information for Singapore, and of course, most importantly, for Smart Nation, right? How do you see digital transformation reshaping our real estate industry in Singapore over the next decade?
Testing. I think you can hear me now. Well, great. First of all, thank you for inviting me to join you for the Unity Convention. And I also like to take this opportunity to congratulate Orange Tea, 25 years old, quarter century, well done. Chinese have a saying, right? 创业难,守业更难. So you know very well that starting businesses is one thing, keeping it going is quite another, and keeping it going for all 25 years is really not a small achievement. So well done. I also want to congratulate the partners that have decided to come together to form a Reliant. It suggests to me that there is confidence in the future of real estate in Singapore. There is also the recognition that when you come together, you can combine your strengths and be able to serve the market better, and as a result, succeed more for the agents who serve with you too. So to me, it's a smart move. Now, to your question, I think you wanted to ask me about the future of real estate industry, particularly how it could be impacted by digital technologies. Now, maybe I will share experience I had. One of the things that people are very concerned about with digital in today's context, in particular, has to do with artificial intelligence. Many people have read about the fact that today, AI agents are increasingly doing the work that some humans are required to do. So naturally, they also think to themselves, what about in real estate? Will the time come where real estate agents are no longer needed? Well, as it turns out, I got an inkling of the idea, of the answer, when I did a house visit not so long ago. It turns out that this is a new BTO block. The residents have been staying there maybe 3.5, 4 years. And when I knocked on one door in particular, a very friendly gentleman came out and we got to chatting. And when I asked him, "Sir, what do you do, for a living?" And he said, "I'm actually in real estate." So then I asked him, what is top of his mind right now? And he says, "We are very near to MOP already, so I'm eyeing my neighbors. I want to know which among my neighbors are thinking of letting go of their property. And if they are, I want to be the one to serve them." So then, we chatted a little bit more and I asked him, "How about you personally? Do you want to move out?" So he told me about the paper gain that he has already made, which is very considerable because most of the BTO flats in Jalan Besar area, which is where I serve as the MP, he would have gotten it when the MOP is 5 years. Now the MOP has to go up to 10 years, right? Because these are generally very well located, and also because people like the fact that they can be close to family and be close to friends, close to childhood memories. So as we chatted, at the back of my mind, I was also thinking about this question of, can AI replace this resident of mine, this real estate agent who lives in this particular block that I visited? I think the answer is not so easy. because the AI can become very clever at doing quite a lot of things. But there are still certain things that will be a stretch, will maybe take quite a long time. You see, what this resident of mine demonstrated is business acumen. He demonstrated an appreciation of the environment around him, which, if you think about it, AI could potentially one day also do, but will it do to the level of granularity that this gentleman was able to demonstrate? Not so clear. Because what he was able to bring together was a combination of knowledge, which I think Christine talked about in the video. You are in the business of knowledge, right? Insights. He had the knowledge about the MOP coming up. That could be public information. You can feed the AI model and they will be able to figure out which are all the flats that are coming up, to their MOP. But he was also combining it with a local knowledge. He was combining it with his intimate relationship with his neighbors. And I think one other thing that he brought to the table was, without saying so, he had a service orientation. He was also thinking in terms of what it could mean for the family if and when they would like to enter into a property transaction. Actually, if you don't mind me saying so, whilst watching your video, there was a smile across my face because the Orange Tea video actually sounded like a government video. You clap lah? Yeah. You know why it sounded like the government video or not? Your first line is that we are helping you to not just find a place, but a life and a dream. Was it something like that? A place in society. And then further down in the video, you talk about not just, I think you said something about thriving in the community, I was thinking, hey, these are all the taglines that government agencies use also. Same one, Same one. You can take off your orange T-shirt and wear any government agency shirt. I think it will work quite well, What I think it means is that there is a high degree of alignment between how we are looking at real estate. In Singapore, ever since independence, we have valued home ownership. We have believed that Singapore is not just a place where you earn a living. Singapore should be a place where you grow a life, you grow your family. And in that regard, I am very encouraged by the fact that many agents in Singapore adopt that mindset. Your service orientation, your ability to think on behalf of your clients does not prevent you from doing well. In fact, it enables you to do better. So from that perspective, how does digital technologies, including AI, help you? So let me give you an example. I think before you can actually clinch a sale, there's actually quite a lot of stuff that is not so fun to do. For example, 1,000 people call you, and then actually they ask you about the orientation, they ask you about, what floor it is, and you're thinking to yourself, actually all this information is available already. I'm not telling you anything new. And you wish somebody would answer on your behalf so that you can use your time, for a more productive purpose, to really understand what's behind the client's decision-making, what is getting in the way of the client saying yes, what is getting in the way of the client, wanting to sign on the dotted line. And what can you do to help the client answer the questions that have not been answered and help him go across the line. And that client sometimes is the buyer, that client sometimes is the seller. I suspect that digital technologies, including AI, can be an assistant to you, and probably a reasonable assistant, answering the questions that you have already answered 1,000 times, so that it can free up your time to answer the questions that cannot be answered 1,000 times. That is very unique to that individual. And we all know that individual clients have a whole history behind them. And your ability to uncover that history, your ability to connect with them at a personal level, your ability to let them know that you are also trying to act in their own best interests. I think this is what will set you apart. And to my mind, the digital technology can try and reduce all the routine work that you shouldn't spend too much time doing, but allow you to do more of the value-added work. And in the same way, across many other sectors, across many other functions, that's how we hope that everyone in Singapore can be more productive. Hopefully, it allows you to clinch the sale earlier. Then you can have more time for family, you can have more time for rest and relaxation, right? And you can have more time to read all the government materials that we send to you. And a lot will be coming soon.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Want to commend the video team. If you ever need some videos to be done, we can outsource as well from Orange Tea.
Oh, yes. Can you imagine? The other thing I would just like to say, I was asking about, your Amos and the tools that you're using and the chatbot that perhaps you will be developing. And I'm told that you have a team of, under 30s, not a very big team. Guess what? In today's context, artificial intelligence, particularly generative artificial intelligence, is making a lot of this work even more democratized, meaning that you don't necessarily need a computer science degree, you don't need a STEM background to be able to use it. In today's context, many of my helpers, whether they come to my Meet the People session or they are helping in the community, they very easily use CapCut, for example, and they can stitch together a video in a very short time. And then they'll send it around for review, and then we can point out this and point out there. And I think in a matter of minutes, they are able to change it again. I can see this tool being very useful to you too, when you, are looking at new properties that you want to introduce to your clients. And I can also see personalization, because what Christine is looking for is different from what I would be looking for. So if I contact you and I say, can you recommend me, say, 5 properties to look at, and these are my requirements, you don't want to recommend the same 5 to Christine as for me. Now, can the tool help you to recommend, based on our profile and what history you know of us, the most likely properties that we would fall in love with, that we would be interested to say, hey, why don't we have a look at it? These kind of things, I think, the AI and the digital technologies can help you to do. In other words, help you to be even more successful than you already are. And I think that's the direction that we want to head towards. How can we help people become even more successful with the use of digital technologies, including AI?
Thank you, Minister. So to round off, basically, we won't be replaced, right? Bottom line is, the nuances are still very much human intuition, human-driven. The intention and the objective, right? The entrepreneurial spirit of that young person that you met during your session. Number 2, of course, is the service orientation, right? Because I think we all still crave a human connection when we're trying to make a deal happen. But the third one is the most important one, which you mentioned, right? 1,000 less questions answered means potentially 1,000 more deals being closed, because you spend time on doing the better things, the higher value. Yes. Thank you. With that, now I'll just proceed on to ask perhaps the next question to Desmond. Right, Desmond, with ETC's regional coverage, right, and consultancy business, perhaps help us to understand how is Singapore positioned amongst our neighbors. There is a premium to be operating business in Singapore, to be honest, right? Are we still seeing inflows and interests from the capital markets in terms of Singapore real estate?
First, I would like to understand my answers are not from ChatGPT. Okay, it's from here.
Also to say our video just now was not done by AI.
I think the capital markets in Singapore is a very interesting market. Why? Because I always mention that we sometimes, to start off, we are a victim of our own success. Why is the capital markets tend to be a little bit slow over the last 24 months? Because interest rates are very high. We're in an inflated interest rates environment, and returns from what we call buildings or developments, be it office or retail, it tends to be a little bit compressed because values are high. Why values are high? Because we did enjoy a lot of foreign investment coming in seeking stability. But so for any private equity fund out there or for any investors out there, Singapore usually ticks off as a core city because you can bear the risk and the returns, high risk, high returns, from other countries, let's say in Southeast Asia, but Singapore is always the one that stabilizes the ship. You know? So we are a victim of our own success, and currently now the capital markets, the last 2 days we know we are facing a little bit more problems, right? The stock markets took a beating, right, from our dear friend across the Pacific, and because of that, there is a little bit of uncertainty in the market, right, because of tariffs and things like that. But the dialogue I'm having to people outside there is, funnily enough, although now for 90 days it's kept at 10%, but if you look at the initial tariff charge, I always tell people, why are we trembling so much? You look at across Southeast Asia, who is the cheapest, right? So why do you come here and do your manufacturing and you only get 10% tariffs, right? So I think going forward, what we are seeing is also we are seeing a lot of synergies between the JBSEZ and Singapore. So we are also having a lot of inquiries on that, and hopefully that will kickstart the capital markets, and hopefully that will kickstart the capital not only for Singapore but for the region.
So
Can
Singapore,
I add to
yes, Minister.
Desmond's response? I think it is in the nature of entrepreneurs to look at the bright side, to look at the upside, because otherwise it's very hard to be an entrepreneur.
I always say the Chinese word for crisis, 有危就有机嘛.
对, you always look at the 机, I will have to look at the 危 lah. Yeah, you know, it's in the nature of, yeah, it's in the nature. You see, you have to consider what this means. What you see in the last few days looks very much like a full-blown trade war. You know, you start with, you know, maybe max of 45%, and then now somebody comes up with 100%, and then it's 84%. You hear these kind of numbers. Somebody was telling me that he boarded the plane, you know, and when he landed, it was a different world, because the whole tariff structure seemed to have gone topsy-turvy again. I think it is sobering for a variety of reasons. Yes, some people say, but Singapore is only 10%, you know, this is a great opportunity for you. I think you have to be a bit circumspect about it. We already have a cost structure. So yes, your tariffs can be lower, but keep in mind that the factories are already taken up. It's not as though suddenly you can create capacity to absorb new activity quite so easily. And whatever the new activity comes in must be even more high value add than the activities we already have in order to be able to displace it. So I wouldn't say that it is zero, but you need to understand that it also partly depends on our own absorptive capacity. We are 720 square kilometers. We are not going to become 1,440, you know, overnight. It's not as though just because the flow should come in, wants to come in, you will be able to take all the flow. That's one. The other thing is that having activities in Singapore is one thing, but Singapore is also a hub. Singapore also does business, you know, with the global environment where there is a lot of toing and froing. And the problem with this current state of uncertainty is that if you are one of the players involved in the toing and froing of money, of capital, of investments, it is much more likely in the face of such great uncertainty that you will say, wait and see. And wait and see means overall a contraction in volume of activities. It is the same for capital markets potentially. It is the same for real estate potentially. Because I don't know what is going to happen next week. I don't want to buy, in case the prices go down. But I may also not want to buy or enter into a transaction because I don't know what will happen to me. So uncertainty is usually not very good news for investment. And that is something that must weigh on our minds. Because Singapore, of course, depends a lot on trade. Trade, not just import and export in relation to Singapore, but also entrepôt trade. And the global trade environment will inevitably have a knockoff effect on us. If overall trade shrinks, then this part of it could also affect us. Think about not just our own trading entities, but think also about the other players in the ecosystem that support trading. For example, those in logistics, for example, those involved in financing. So overall, if you look purely at the fact that, oh, you're 10%, if you look at the ranking table, you can afford to sleep a little bit better at night, I wish that was so. I wish that was so. I think there are bigger implications that we have to be concerned about. We have to be concerned about the overall impact on trade. We have to be concerned about the overall impact on global investment sentiments, of which, a big part of it will also flow into the investment sentiments within Singapore. So those are the things that maybe I will just, add as a slight caution. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we don't try our best to make the most of whatever situation we find ourselves. We will certainly do that, but we have to be quite circumspect about the broader implications and how that could be detrimental to our own interests. Yeah. If it were quite straightforward, we are the lowest on the table, I don't think the Prime Minister need to make a ministerial statement in Parliament. It is because it is serious that the PM has to come up and explain what are the consequences. But that should not prevent you as an entrepreneur to continue to go for it and keep going for it.
Thank you, Minister. A nice round off. It's so easy for us sometimes to look at the world on such a simplistic level, right? But we know it's always a lot more complex than that, right? But to bring it back down to home ground for us, maybe I'll ask Christine the next question, right? So Christine, you're often featured in local media, presenting insights from our research and analytics department. Now, beyond transaction data gathered from the market, we recently did a consumer aspiration survey. So would you be able to share some very interesting insights from the ground on what some of the people really are looking for or thinking about in the real estate market today?
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Minister. Okay, so this is one area of work that is very new. We have not released the results even to the media. What happens is that for the fourth quarter of 2024, which was last year, we ran an online survey and we asked 1,700 respondents on what are their housing concerns, what are some things that, in terms of housing aspirations, and what else can we help as property advisors so that they can make that property purchase better, because we all know that affordability is definitely one issue that a lot of Singaporeans are very concerned about. So just to throw off some very high level kind of observations is that an overwhelming majority of our respondents, 80% and above, the top concern among Singaporeans will be retirement. Yeah, so this is something that is quite interesting because we polled across the different demographics. That means like including the boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. And even the younger people, they are very concerned about retirement. And the other second highest concern among Singaporeans will be whether they have to work longer to pay off their mortgages. And of course, the third one is also quite surprising, is that they are very concerned about whether the next generation can afford housing. So this also applies to the younger demographics as well. And well, the good news is that, among all the concerns, seeing properties in Singapore as an investment is not really such a big concern. That means many Singaporeans, actually, they have quite good confidence in terms of, the prospect of their properties. Like just now you mentioned that even HDB flats right now are able to fetch good prices. Then, of course, understanding the problem is one area, but we want to see how can we help our Singaporeans. So let's say, for example, like what Desmond said, if we want to be property advisors that our consumers can rely on, then we need to know how to help them. So we ask them, so what, let's say, for example, if property prices continue to rise, so what would you do? What are you willing to compromise? And we found that 50%, about 40 to 50% of our respondents, they are willing to compromise on buying a smaller home. They can even compromise on buying a lower floor. So this is something that maybe we can help our consumers if, let's say, they have this concern. But they are not as willing to compromise if it comes to, let's say, for example, buying a property that is further from the MRT station, from amenities, transport nodes. And of course, we also asked one question as well, because right now, a lot of people are talking about, since prices maybe in certain countries are lower, so maybe they may want to retire there. So we also asked them, is that something that you'll look at? And just a very small percentage of Singaporeans, about 20%, they say, yeah, they're willing to compromise by staying further away from Singapore or even to rent. So that shows that many Singaporeans are actually very rooted to our home ground, and they really want to continue to stay here. So these are some very interesting insights that we have uncovered, and we are writing a white paper, so soon we'll be sharing some of these insights. And that includes, like, for example, the government releasing, for example, white plans in the BTO flats. So we wanted to find out, how open are Singaporeans to buy this kind of BTO flats, and as well as the government has also released a lot of supply in terms of the new growth areas, like, for example, Turf City, Turf Club, and even, like, for example, Paya Lebar Air Base. And based on our respondent, feedback, we find that, I think sort of what they have done is quite in line. That means a high proportion of young people are very open to buying this kind of properties, but not so much for example, the boomer generation.
Thank you, Christine. I can definitely attest to the MRT thing. I remember when I started this business 20 years ago, people said 900 meters to MRT station. Oh, that's okay. Today, you tell them 900 meters, they'll tell you, please don't tell me it's near an MRT station.
Wow.
In fact, they want...
Our standards, our requirements have gone up.
Correct, Minister. Thank you. Now, I would like to throw the questions to the floor. I don't want to be the only one asking the questions. I think we may have some questions on the floor as well. We can direct it to any of the panelists up on stage. Anybody?
Maybe whilst you're thinking about your question, when Christine was talking about even young people being concerned about retirement, it brought to mind an exchange that I had with yet another group of young people. These are young Singaporeans working in London. So I was there on a work trip, and usually on these work trips, I ask our colleagues who are based there to see whether we can gather a group of Singaporeans so that we can, get a sense of how they are doing, and also what concerns they have, if and when eventually they are ready to come home. And firstly, generally speaking, a lot of Singaporeans who are working overseas have a lot of options. And working overseas is not a result of not being able to find something in Singapore, but quite often it is a result of better opportunities that allow them to achieve career growth. And they are usually very well regarded by their employers. So generally meeting this group of young Singaporeans is a very uplifting matter, and I always enjoy it. One of the young men I remember, he was saying to me that he was surprised how hard it was for his colleagues, the Ang Mohs, to own a home. And he did not realize when he was still in Singapore that for him and his wife, being the proud new owners of a BTO flat, compared to their peers in London, they are about the youngest homeowners. And when they ask their friends, when do you think you will be able to own a home? None of them believe that they could even get started until maybe their 40s. They expect to at least, rent till their 40s. And they do worry about staying in leading cities in the world and whether they could ever afford a home or pay it off completely at all. So he shared with me that it was something that he realized only after he went to work in London. And actually, after a while, I realized that many of the Singaporeans working in the big cities, the young people, have similar experience. If you go to New York, if you go to San Francisco, if you go to other European cities, if you go to Frankfurt, if you go to Paris, similar stories. So to the question for a young person, how to achieve retirement adequacy? Actually, starting home ownership early is one very good way, because the vast majority of people should be able to pay for their BTO flat without even touching cash. The CPF contributions for a couple usually pays for the bulk of it. And it's a matter of 20, 25 years that they are very likely to pay it off, even if they didn't experience a lot of salary growth. But if our economy continues to do well, if we continue to keep up with technology, if we manage our situation well, then actually chances are this young couple will be able to pay off the loan a bit earlier. And then after that, they can think about either going for an investment property or they think about upgrading, which is very much the Singapore story. So by the time they get to maybe their 50s and their 60s, for most people, not everyone, of course, for most people, of course, life is full of ups and downs. Marriages are not always, going to last forever. People do sometimes have to reconstitute their families. And this is just part and parcel of life. But generally speaking, if I meet a resident in his 50s or 60s, they generally have paid off their homes already. And what they have also managed to do over the years is to accumulate some CPF savings. So the home plus the CPF savings plus their own private stash should generally be able to help provide a good degree of retirement adequacy. The thing that is unknown is this: we don't know what our own aspirations are. Today, we may be satisfied, staying in our current home, moving around in a current mode of transport, whether it is taking public transport or whether it is grabbing or whether it is having our own vehicle. We are happy with it. But in time, we will very naturally like to have more. And if those expand a lot faster, then quite difficult, right? But if you want to talk about providing for the basics, I would think that if the home is paid for, you already have a roof over your head, and if you already have some good, build up in your CPF, by and large, the basics should be well taken care of. The only thing that sometimes, derails people, and this is where society should come in to support. You do not know if you are hard hit by illness. You do not know if sometimes something happens in a family that really throws you off course. You do not know whether the work that you do totally disappeared, and it can happen, and the employer was not particularly helpful in providing you with some sort of payout. And these are the kind of things that I think society can always find means of supporting. And the key to be able to support individuals when they get knocked off their path is if you have strong fiscal resources so that you can help people. So for example, in our case, if a person past the age of 40 finds himself suddenly no longer able to get a job, but this person is prepared to go back to get a diploma. Actually, we now have a scheme which I think is quite good. It will actually provide $3,000 in terms of allowance on a monthly basis for 2 years. So you're talking about 3,000 times 12, 36 times 2, 72,000. Essentially, this is our country, our society, we together, you and me saying to this individual, don't lose hope, don't give up. Here's something, it's not everything, but it will help provide you with some resources for your family whilst you pick yourself up. That's the kind of society we want to build. That's the kind of social support. And of course, there will also be people in old age, even with all the help, that they might have gotten, they still find themselves in a difficult situation. If this group of people is not very, very big, then I think as a country, we can decide, provide them with the support. If this group is very, very, very big, well, then whatever you can provide to everyone will be not so much. So that's kind of like how we think of social support. Try to help everyone who can succeed, go as far as they would like, go as far as they can, and then try and put in place the safety net for people who really need it, because in spite of their best effort, life just threw them a curveball and they just need to respond. So that's the kind of thinking. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister.
I'm still waiting for the, sorry, I didn't see.
If I can just sum it up here, I just want to mention this.
Yeah.
Putting the story of what Christine mentioned earlier on, about young Singaporeans worried about retirement, I think we have to take a moment to be celebrating some gratitude here, right, being in Singapore. Our young people here, unlike in London, who are worried about owning a home when they're in their 40s, our young people here, because they own a home already, they are even more advanced in their aspirations. They are worried about retirement. So I think that's a moment of gratitude for all of us here, that we are very advanced in our aspirations. Yes, a question, please.
Sorry, go ahead.
Morning, Minister. Firstly, I have two things. Number one is a request. All right. When you speak, you say that orange tea is very aligned with government from the statement, and we're very heartened to hear that. I have this simple request. When you network with your fellow MP and other minister who heard they want to buy and sell property, I think you should know who to recommend them to.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit right there.
This one very tough, leh.
No worry, you can.
Never mind, Minister. You like our T-shirt, right? We let you wear it. You can implicitly suggest.
That's joking. Anyway.
Thank you. I will try my best.
Thank you so much. But anyway, my question is, we mentioned about AI and technology. With 30,000 agents in Singapore at the moment, does the government intend through technology and AI reduce the number of housing agents in Singapore?
What do we want for our people? We want them to have a good life. So it means that we want them to be able to earn a good income to provide for their family. But what is the best way for them to earn that income? And how do we give each person an opportunity to have their full potential realized? That is the more important question. Does it take 30,000 real estate agents to serve Singapore's market? And can all 30,000 earn a good living? If the answer is yes, there is no reason to artificially go and reduce it. But if, or for that matter, if the market is going to take 40,000 people to serve, and these 40,000 people all can do very well, no problem, carry on. On the other hand, if actually for earning the same or even higher income, just 25,000 agents can do it. And then this other 5,000 may be able to find something else to do. Because your skill sets, to my mind, are very transferable. Your skill set is really in terms of understanding what people want. Your skill set is about identifying people's, sometimes what they want and what they need and what they understand, there's a gap. And your job and what you excel at is helping them to close these gaps. You know, this is a very rare skill. This is a skill that can be applied in many, many situations, many, many contexts. So in a certain sense, I'm confident. In a certain sense, I do believe that even if it is not applied towards real estate, there are other things that you can apply your skills to. One other thing that I should add is this. The workforce of the future will engage in activities that we cannot even imagine. To give you an example, if you go to the US today, about 40% of the jobs that Americans do, those are who are employed, not those who are not, those who are employed, if you look at the kind of jobs that they do and you ask, did this job exist in 1960 or whatever the time may be, the answer is, specifically to 1960, 40% of the jobs that Americans do today did not exist in 1960, plus minus. So you roughly get the order of magnitude. It would be about the same in Singapore too, if you fast forward 10 years, if you fast forward 20 years, if you fast forward 30 years. The kind of jobs that Singaporeans will engage in will not be the same as it is today. For example, even for you, I remember buying my first home HDB flat in Tampines Street 21. In those days, how did we look out for advertisements? Flip the classifieds, look, and then call, and then arrange for viewing is pager, right? Yeah, okay, meet at this time. Nowadays, this kind of thing is so outdated. Nowadays, you know, I think buyers generally, of course, especially the younger generation, they expect you to have a virtual tour already, right? 360-degree, up, down, you know, you can look at the floor, you can look at the ceiling, you can look at everything, right? And the expectations have gone up so much, the skill sets have gone up so much, the way in which you complete the transaction has changed so much. And the other value that I think you bring to the table and the other attribute that you bring is adaptability. Because the market changes, your clients changes, so you already have it in you. You already have a certain resilience, you already have a sense of adaptability. So to my mind, if the market does not need, 30,000 to serve, you will find that people who are looking at options, they are saying that if I use my same skill sets to another type of work, I can earn more than I'm earning as a real estate agent. And they naturally will go and look for those other work. And should we stop them from doing so? Well, the question is, why would you do that if they can do better? By the same token, if the market continues to expand, still a lot of transactions that require humans to be part of the process, then I think you will see that, there will be others looking at you and they are saying, wow, every year they seem to be, Chinese New Year, the ang pao getting bigger and bigger. So that means they must be doing well lah. So therefore, maybe I should think about entering real estate also, correct? Yeah. I don't know what ang pao you all give lah, but I'm guessing that that's how people sense whether you're doing well or not. Yeah. So, I didn't get your name, sir, but I want to assure you that the government does not set an artificial number for, which sector should have how many people. That would be not very helpful. People should be able to go to the jobs that give them the best, income, give them the best opportunities, give them the best level of satisfaction. And what we should do is to encourage them to be able to move into these opportunities as easily as possible.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
my name is Alan. Thank you so much.
Sorry?
Alan.
My name is Alan. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Alan.
Alan from Orange Tea. You must give number lah. Like that, how to refer.
Yeah.
A lot of Allens,
Yes, Christine, we can round it off.
Yeah, okay. So maybe to round off, as Minister was mentioning about, and also what Alan was saying, will we be replaced? I think just to add one note about AI is that this is my perspective about the whole AI landscape. Because if we look at in the past, technology was here to replace the blue-collar workers. But I believe that with AI coming, there will be a situation when AI is here to replace some of the white-collar workers. So I believe that, so that day I was just talking to some of our young people, and they're saying that, since AI is running so fast, so what should we do? So I believe that maybe there are two ways. Number one, either you acquire an AI company, or second one is that you've got to run faster than the AI, how it runs. So I guess that is something that we cannot run away.
Or get the AI to help you run faster.
Yes.
You don't try to
Correct.
run faster yourself, I think very hard. Yeah. The competition will be between someone with AI skill set and someone without AI skill set.
But of course, because right now, for us, we do research, and we are also starting to harness, AI in terms of how we can increase or improve our productivity. Honestly, I'm really very thankful. I think we are a very blessed country that we are very big into AI if you compare to many countries. So, and of course, for Orange Tea, we are also very strong in terms of our technology. So that actually helps us. And to add on whether, our jobs, is it going to be made redundant by AI and so on. The other thing that I believe is that I think even with AI coming in, they will replace some of this mundane work. But I think customer service, this sector will be something that is not easily replaced. Which just now you mentioned about, being able to maybe serve the customer, giving that soft touch. So I believe that there's still that place where even with all the technology that's coming in, and then with all this AI coming, I believe that what we are doing for the customers will still be important.
Thank you. Okay, last one.
I can only promote Alan from Orange Tea.
We need diversity.
I think he needs a mic.
There's one question there also.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Afternoon, Minister. I have actually one question that comes in two parts. First one, basically, I think a lot of us have some high-end clients, and basically they're saying that they want to come to Singapore's residential market, but apparently the ABSD at 60% is way too high. So I was just thinking out the box. Would the ministry be able to consider, for example, say if these customers come in and they buy above a certain quantum, say 5 million and above, that means they swim at the deeper end of the ocean, you let them play in that little part. But whereas the lower end, you still fix it at 60% to protect our locals, so that they do not get eaten up by the big players from overseas. And then the second part is, if we do have any suggestions or feedback for the government or the ministry, is there a place or email that we can put in our feedbacks so that we can all improve Singapore together? Thank you.
Wonderful. See, that's right. Well, overall, I think, if I understand your proposal correctly, sir, is that at the higher end, maybe properties above 10, 15, 20 million, don't charge 60% ABSD. Is lower, is it? Is that, to understand you? Maybe it's a tier. Beyond a certain property value, let it come down to 50% or 40% or 30%. Is that what you're suggesting? Okay, got you. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. We always say in policy making, never say never. You never know when the conditions change that something like that becomes necessary. For the moment, it does appear that even at 60%, there is strong enough interest. And there is always a worry when you tier the rates too much. There is arbitrage, meaning that the way in which you price the property, then, you go one way or the other. So I think the short answer to it is that when it comes to all policies, you never say never. Take yours as a feedback that perhaps one day our Ministry of National Development together with the Ministry of Finance decide that this is a good thing to do, and see how it goes from there. Then to your second question, actually there are many different ways to give feedback. You can search online for your MP, that's one way. Second, there is always a portal known as REACH, R-E-A-C-H. There is a variety of methods. I would say that actually giving feedback through organizations is sometimes more impactful because you have a chance to aggregate the voices. You have a chance to say that this is not just my personal view, this is a view of most of us. It cannot be a view of all of you because there's no such thing as all. Nobody totally agrees with everything. So if we say that most of us see this as an area that we would like to see improvement in, that's also quite useful. So a variety of methods. If you'd like, we'd be happy to get my colleague to follow up with you directly to point you to some of these resources. Okay, all the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And this wraps
Gentlemen,
up our session.
I think because he has
Oh,
been
he's
so
still
patiently standing there, he's like a very persistent agent.
Do we have a microphone over there? Or Roy, if your voice, I help you to...
Yes, Roy, is it?
Yes, that's
Roy, the mic is
There's
right
a mic.
next
Oh,
to
yeah.
you now.
Thank you very much. Hi, Minister. Roy here. The question I'm going to ask is not related to AI. I'm just wondering that if Federal Reserve is going to reduce the interest rate and really cut down because of US 36 trillion steps, will MAS reduce the SORA rate below 2%? That's my first
Will
question.
MAS reduce the?
Oh,
Sora.
Sora, yeah.
For a
Yes,
moment, I heard Solar Winds
yeah.
because that's cybersecurity.
Yeah, SORA rate below 2%. My second question is that in the event that Singapore, the economy is affected, our economy is slowing down, will government use properties as a vehicle to loosen up of the cooling measures so that to inject money into the economy without putting in money so that the multiplier effects can kickstart in Singapore to help us to recover from the bad times? Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Those are really very good questions, quite deserving of your own separate convention, you know, just talking about monetary policy. But maybe if I could just deal with it, you know, at the broader level, you know. Firstly, Singapore's approach as a very open, small economy is not so much to manage the interest rates, but to manage our exchange rate. Because we import everything, whether it is for manufacturing, whether it is for our own daily consumption, a lot of the stuff that we need are imported. So in terms of trying to moderate inflation, it is the exchange rate that has got a bigger impact. If the exchange rate is allowed to appreciate a little bit more, it means that everything that we buy for Singapore to be used in Singapore, that cost can moderate. So then what the Monetary Authority of Singapore will do is to engage in what is known as open market operation to try and allow the Singapore exchange rate to appreciate a bit more. The other reason why doing so also helps to moderate inflation here is something that you understand. Whether you go to JB on the weekend or go to Bangkok or you take your family to Japan, where nowadays you don't only eat ramen because it's the only thing you can afford, but you will go and have an A5 Wagyu buffet and find that it actually, you know, really good value. This is all because the currency has appreciated over time. And so we manage it, and by doing so, we relieve the pressure on inflation in Singapore. Okay. So generally, that's how we try and use monetary policy to manage inflationary tendencies in Singapore. It is very unlike the US, where it is the interest rate which influences the propensity, the willingness to invest, which then creates demand that push prices up, or it moderates it. So we use different tools, and the reason is because the situation in Singapore is very different. So I would say that we watch what the US do with regards to the interest rates, because that tells us where the US economy is headed in terms of it likely to expand more, have higher inflation, or not expand as much, and also have more moderated inflation. And as a result, how it would influence markets around the world, how it would influence investment patterns around the world. So that's really more what we look at the US interest rates for. Whereas in terms of managing our own inflation, we will use the exchange rate to a larger extent. Yeah. But you know, actually these are very good questions, Roy. You have a head of research. I think she also very capable of answering all these questions, correct or not? Give her a round of applause.
Yeah, I guess, okay, maybe I should pass it to the expert here.
I'm so sorry, I need to cut it short. We are
Sorry,
15
Justin.
minutes overdue. So yeah, great minds here. Feel free to engage us. We're always available. Minister, thank you so much for being up on stage with us also and sharing your insights and intelligence. A round of applause, everybody. Yeah, as we wrap up this session.